you get this kind of overconfidence, which is basically where every like teenager is.
Well, I think this is
Because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, but you feel like you know stuff.
Well, to relate this back to the game jam, I mean, that was the same thing where up until actually doing one, making games to me was like a completely inaccessible.
Just magic.
And then I did it and I was like, I can do this. Right? You made one terrible game in 48 hours.
Yeah, and then you
like,
look at, you know, Call of Duty and you're like, this is basically the same.
Yeah.
Butterscotch. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 94 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast, Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam and I'm the certifiable SSLer.
I'm Sam and I'm the Nostradamus.
And today is tax day.
Yeah.
2017.
Wait, does this go live on tax day?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better.
Wait.
Today's tax day.
Yeah, today is tax
the
day.
day after.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the tax day was the 19th.
18th.
Today's the 18th?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I gotta
Yeah.
wire it.
Adam's going to have to run out of here. Oh, yeah. By the way, speaking of shit, there's going to be profanity on this show.
Sorry.
So if you're a youth or a baby or a child or a platypus of sorts, then you shouldn't be listening to this because you either can't understand English or you're just too easily offended and your skin is too thin. And it
Platypi,
excretes
I think
milk.
I think the part that excretes milk is pretty thin, but the rest is not bad.
Yeah.
Your milk membranes are too thin for this podcast, and you just got to get out. All right, listen, folks.
What?
We got news. We got news out the wazoos this week.
We do. We got a bunch of exciting stuff hitting the packs.
So we're gonna try to blaze through it as quickly as we can.
417
Because
Blaze.
although it's all super interesting and we're excited to talk about it, we also have a lot of questions we want to get to. So we're just gonna have to do everything
Okay, let's go.
really fast and hard. All right, you guys on board? You ready to do this?
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited.
All right, so for starters, news item number 1. This past week, Adam went for a run, got lost, learned how to use the sun to navigate, and then went back home. The question is, how does one get lost when going for a run near one's own home? Let's talk about this.
Well, the answer is very simple, which is that I have aphantasia and have no visual memory. So every time I go anywhere, it looks like I'm in a new place.
Yeah.
So
This is
that
a real
was
thing. We've
what
talked about this in
happened.
podcasts before.
Yeah,
About
I think we have.
5% of people. So your visual memory is a spectrum. Some people have photographic memory. Most people have kind of, you can form pictures in your mind roughly, not super crystal
It's
clear.
like a
but-
down-res JPEG.
Yeah. And you tend to use this to remember things, right? So like you'll be like, where did I leave my keys? And you'll kind of like quickly look through
Conjure up an image.
You'll look through the various snapshots of your past 5 hours, and sometimes your keys will be there, and you'll be like, oh yeah, it's by that bowl or whatever. But if you can't summon pictures at all in your mind, which is the farthest end of the spectrum, which is where Adam
That's where I
is,
live.
then you can't reuse any visual memory. And so every time you see things, it's like you've never seen it before.
But you said that you
Well,
have,
so
you have
things
familiarity.
Yeah, so things when I see them, they're not surprising. Like so they still
Right,
look
but you got to see
familiar.
it.
But I have
you
to
can't.
see it.
You can't.
I can't see it in my mind. I
Yeah.
have to
So
see it
you
in real
couldn't.
life.
You couldn't. People say like, oh yeah, just retrace your steps in your mind.
Yeah, I
It's like,
can't do that.
You can't do it
So it's
because
the idea of there's a thing called tacit memory, which is so if you take an Alzheimer's patient and you train them on anything like anything that's essentially a learned skill, so painting or anything like that, over time they do get better at painting, but they have no memory of being able to paint, for example, or any sort of skill like that becomes implicit. So they can do it, but they don't know that they can do it. So it's almost the same sort of thing.
or
like,
how it even works.
you have
or
no
whatever.
access to
Yeah.
conjuring images, but if you see something,
Yeah, my
your
brain
brain's
is
like, I've
still
seen that
storing
before.
it somewhere, right? I just don't have.
I know.
access to it.
You used to draw in high school a bit, but so I guess when you're looking at a thing,
Yeah,
you'd be
I can
I'm gonna
draw
put
a
a
thing
line.
I'm looking at. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I can't make up.
You can't sort of like visualize what the final thing might look like.
I was
or
always
whatever.
so worried that your migraines and your inability to navigate was due to the fact that it hit you in the head with a brick that one time.
I think the migraines came before that.
Probably not. Yeah, that's just a
But,
separate.
Unrelated.
But I didn't know. There were two things that I didn't know about until sometime after being hit in the head with a brick. One of them was that I was cross-eyed.
Did
But that was
happen after-
that was before too. That was
Okay,
before
yeah.
the brick. That was
But we didn't
pre-brick.
know though. We didn't know at that time.
We didn't know, but we think so.
But who knows?
Who knows?
And the other one was that I can't conjure images in my mind,
Right.
which I didn't actually realize was a thing that other people could do that I couldn't until about a year ago.
Right.
So that means that I didn't discover either of these two things about myself until
after
I was
brick,
hit in the head with a brick.
AB.
Yeah. So
And since you have no visual memory, you can't remember whether or not those things applied pre-brick.
Yeah.
You know, so it's hard to.
It becomes very difficult to know. So you're not completely off the hook.
Yeah. So you might have done this.
It was a childhood accident for everyone who's not worried.
I mean, we've all
Things
been there.
happen.
We've all been there. You know, you're hanging out with your brother, playing with bricks.
Hit him in
A
the face.
wasp shows up. You throw a brick at a wasp.
Uh-huh.
You swing a brick. Whatever you do with bricks and wasps, you did that thing.
Just normal stuff.
Stray brick corner just cracks your brother's skull.
You pass it out in the grass. You go get your mom. You know, whatever.
Everything's fine.
It's just your classic youngster with bricks and wasps scenario.
Although it would have been awesome if at that time the bug assault gun existed. You guys know about this?
But then I just would have shot you in the head with the.
Yeah, but then it would have just been salt.
But it's
so
just like
fine.
getting you get salt sprayed on you.
That's
It's like
that's fair.
it's
I mean,
yeah,
some
it's
might
a
be
little,
stuck
It's a
in
little
me.
spring powered. It's a little plastic spring powered gun that
It's
shoots
powerful.
It shoots salt, just like table salt.
It's a shotgun, but with salt as its pellets, right? I mean, I completely obliterated this enormous, hideous creature in my basement. It was just sitting on the wall. It was one of those silverfish things.
Oh,
or
I
whatever.
hate
It
those
was
things.
just sitting there.
Oh, yeah,
It was
they're
like
like-
an inch long.
They're like 40 feet long, and they've got
Yeah.
a million legs.
Yeah.
and
And
each
they're all
leg is 40 feet long.
Yeah. So it was just sitting there on the wall, and I was like, I have my
I
bug
hate this
assault
thing.
gun. So I went and I grabbed it. And it was the first time I got to shoot something with it. And so I was all excited. You know? So I shot it, and it was evaporated. There was nothing there. I couldn't find any piece anywhere, and I was like,
That
I
sounds
feel like it's
suspicious.
on me
Yeah,
now.
this is like a super villain.
Yeah, it's
scenario.
on you.
No.
That thing is in your shirt or something. It's probably still there.
I checked my shirt very carefully because that's what I thought too. I was like, it's got to be, but I did see one leg.
That's just decoy leg. Don't trust it.
Who knows? But
It's like those lizards. You know,
When you're
they
not
leave
looking,
their-
all the legs wiggle back together.
it
Reform.
creates itself.
Yeah, those fucking things are like the Terminator.
I hate 'em.
The
They're
liquid
so
metal
gross.
bug
Silverfish.
Terminator. All right, so next news item,
Yeah.
big one. We updated our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reconfigure our YouTube channel to be a hub for all kinds of cool shit that we're doing, because we realized we're just doing a terrible job of most things, and including our YouTube channel. So that's in the works, and I think it's ready to go now.
Yeah. And Seth's talk is up on there. So Seth did a talk at Pixel Press.
Pixel Pop.
Pixel Pop.
Pixel Press is a company.
Pixel Press is a company. Pixel Pop last year.
About 8 months ago.
About 8 months ago, which is finally available online. So you can go watch it. It's about a 40-minute talk about how to just do what you want. And really, it's good. I watched
a
it
good
last
talk.
week, pep myself up from
Thanks,
watching it.
man.
So nice job.
You're gonna hear the word "dang" a lot.
yeah.
There's a lot of dang.
There's a good theory about dangs in the talk. So if motivation and I guess just being productive are a thing you're interested in, if you go to our YouTube channel, we actually broke out all the different sections of our sort of the stuff we have available. So there's a section for talks, there's a section for the time lapse videos and
Inkscape tutorials.
Crashlands related stuff. So you can actually find things, which is
Yeah. So now if you just go to YouTube,
surprising.
search for Butterscotch Shenanigans, our channel is the first thing. You go there and do a little exploring.
yeah. And on top of that, we are working on the Podbot. By we, I mean Adam.
Podbot.
So Podbot will automatically upload these podcasts to YouTube with a cool image that Seth made on last weekend. And
Well, you helped as well. But
I did.
Yeah.
I put some pictures together, and then you can just enjoy the podcast in a more visual nature. through
It'll
your-
be like you're sitting there drinking coffee with us
Hanging
and in
out.
front of a fire
with a quadrupus influx juice box.
And
and
a
a couple-
sporadic flop rock.
and a couple fish people just hanging out
So,
in the background.
Just
so
normal things.
that's going to be happening probably either this week or next week, depending on when Adam prioritizes it. And then the other exciting stuff is, people have been asking for both a jam list of all of our old jam games and a book list. So happy birthday to all of you.
Well,
Because
this actually we got a question from a while back.
Okay.
From Brand 1415. And Brand says, you guys have suggested a lot of books over the last 82 episodes of this thingy. So I guess this was like 10 episodes ago this question was asked. From serious life-altering, world-shaping volumes about stuff that, like, matters, to books you've simply enjoyed reading, any chance of getting a master list on your site. So we thought about this, and
yeah, there is.
there's a 100% chance of this happening now.
So Monique is actually putting together the book list page right now.
Now.
Which has links to all the books as well as little blurbs and sort of a general section. So we broke it out into the core reading, which is essentially what we thought is
Just read it.
all the books that I think you should just read as a human to be really, really effective, do better in your life, enjoy your life
just
more.
good stuff to
Just
think
good
about.
stuff. And then from there, it breaks out into a bunch of other categories based on all the other things we've read. So some biographies in there. So I put the Team of Rivals book, which is about Lincoln, which is one of my favorite books, actually, ever. As well as Thinking Fast and Slow, which is the sort of grandfather of psychology's psychology book that was written a few years ago. And then we have all sorts of other stuff. Adam's going to put some programming things in there as well. So we're getting all that put together, and those should be available at the time of the podcast. So if you want to check those out, just go to the blog. I think it's on the community pull down list.
Yeah, should end up being at like /books or
Scotch.net/books, maybe.
Hopefully.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what it is. We'll see what happens.
And of course, we're also trying to. We thought this might be a cool way to support the podcast. So we've only spent money on the podcast. We've never made money on it. And so we're gonna be working on getting what is it called? Like the Amazon
affiliate program.
They'll be hooked up as soon as this thing's live.
So if you go to our book list, there's a book on there you like, if you'd follow the link through our site and buy the book that way, then we get a little cut. We get a little cut of it.
You spend exactly as much money as you would have, and we get some of it.
So that way you support the podcast, you support the author, and you support yourself.
Yeah.
And also Amazon, but whatever.
And the jam games are up. So that's the other big
yes.
thing. Yeah. So those will be up as well at the time of the podcast. So if you go to itch.io, or bscotch.itch.io, which is, if you think about it, it's like Bscotch itch, which is kind of like jock itch, except it's good.
It's when your Bscotch itches.
Yeah. So Bscotch.
Sure, that's
.itch.io. We basically dug through our graveyard and pulled up all of these jam games that we've made.
Not all of them, actually.
Not all of them.
We left like
some of them we left rotting.
Yeah. But Chauncey the Rabbit is actually there. So there's the original, it's called Luck Runner. Actually, it's the
original
EXE.
Talfight, right?
The original Talfight.
Because the original Talfight was the first game ever made by Sam and Seth.
Yeah, and it was pre-Butterscotch Shenanigans Butterscotch Shenanigans was formed in June of 2012. We didn't even start making games under Butterscotch until later than that, right? But
so it's like a year before we started.
Yeah, it was basically like a year. It was more than a year before Talfight 2, which was our first published game.
But Chauncey the Rabbit, who made Chauncey?
Sam and I made Chauncey
2 weeks.
as a couple weekends.
And that was before you full-timed it or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a side project.
Yeah. So if you want to sort of see the evolution of our game skills, I guess it's a really fun sort of trip down memory lane.
We did put the dates on all the games too,
and the total time
when they were made.
So a bunch of them are up there. It's not all of them, but a lot of people have asked for games like Shucks, which is that stealth head writing game as an alien, and then Chauncey the Rabbit, as well as stuff like Bread Brothers, I Know CPR, a bunch of these jam games that we've talked about before, but most people have never actually gotten to play. Goopidemic also being one of them. So we've experimented with a ton of genres, and you'll be able to actually go to the jam page, pull them down and play them and see all the stuff for yourself. And then the important thing is that the whole point the reason we're doing this is because I think it's, like we talked about last week, it's just really fun to actually show the evolution and say, because we always talk about how you're going to make garbage before you start making good stuff.
Now you can see our garbage.
Yeah. And you can see
a lot of it is pretty bad.
Oh yeah. But you'll see some of the good parts and some of the ways that we sort of, some of the things you start pulling through.
Yeah. So my favorite sort of garbage game that we made was Bread Brothers because
that was good.
Because it requires 2 controllers. We had to use a program called Joy to Key.
Oh yeah.
To kind of like make it work. I think you can play it on a keyboard, but it's a 2-player game, 2 players only. So you can't play it by yourself. And there's no point to it. It's basically like one of you is a peanut butter slice of bread and one of you is a jelly slice of bread. And the jelly person has like a cannon that explodes, and the peanut butter person has like a speed boost cannon thing. And so the explodey person can launch the other player with the shockwave, and the speed person can boost the speed of the other player, right? So like each person's gun has a positive benefit to the others, and then you can also slap your slices together to form a sandwich where now the 2 of you are one character.
Yeah, so you have 2 faces on one bread
and then whoever
slice.
initiates the fusion controls the legs. So like if you run up to your buddy and you hit the button to slap your slice together, then you start running around, and then they control the gun, and it fuses the guns together as well, which forms a gun that shoots out this
rainbow,
weird, like rainbow ball
sphere.
And then wherever that ball lands, it teleports the 2 of you to that location, your sandwich comes apart, and then you high five so hard that
Everything on screen dies.
And we spent so much time just like coming up with these sandwich characters that the game itself is just a total piece of shit.
Oh, yeah,
It's
there's nothing to do. There's just knives falling
there's
from the
these
sky.
knives that fall from the sky and you just shoot them. And that's it. Like that's the whole thing.
But the fun thing is because of those mechanics, when you're like, if you just have a buddy to play with, you can waste a good like 10, 15 minutes just tooling around.
Kicking around.
We did a thing
slapping
where
slices.
we stood on top of each other and used the rocket guy on the bottom, the mortar guy, to like try to ride up into the sky as high as we could go just to see what would happen. So lots of goofy stuff.
So we have all these games on there that are just kind of you could tell that like we had an interesting idea, but we just didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we just didn't nail it. But yeah, I mean, it's all there. It's all there for your perusal. So check it out. And there's one final thing relating to jams, which is we have our 100th episode coming up in 6 weeks.
Yep.
6 weeks, something like that. And we thought, how could we celebrate having 100 dang podcast episodes?
100 hours.
It's a lot of cast. And of course, this is a game dev podcast for people who are interested in game development or whatever, right? And so we thought, let's do a jam. Let's do a community jam where we get our podcast listeners involved, get everybody. It's a 100th episode celebration jam.
Bonanza, I believe is the term.
Yeah.
Bonanza. And so we've got that now organized. If you go to podcast.bscotch.net, you'll see a link to the jam at the top of the page. You can also go to itch.io/jam/bscotch100. And that's our 100th episode jam. And our hope is to get, I think we're going for like 14 million games coming out of this thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the low end.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to be conservative with it, you know. So far we have 25 people signed up. So we're definitely on track.
We're well on the way.
I think if you assume, that we're kind of growing exponentially.
Yeah. Which I think is always the fair assumption.
That's how things grow.
Yeah. We're a startup, right? So
yeah.
That's the inevitable consequence.
Yeah. So once the jam is done, obviously we're going to be bought out by, Uber or something like that.
The jam is actually our exit strategy.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it's going to be super fun. We have a Discord channel as well, or it's part of our community.
Have we told people what the themes are going to be? Or how they're going to be generated?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, we did tell them?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
We haven't told them what it is, but because there's 100 to choose from.
Yeah. Nobody knows what their theme is going to be specifically.
But I thought we were going to let them just reroll as much as they want.
Yeah. Yeah. So who cares? But yeah.
So why is this a secret? I'm going to go.
I
should go unlock that code again.
It's not a secret. So the themes for the jam will be from a curated selection of our podcast episode titles,
which are off the rails pretty much all the time.
Yeah. So you're gonna like roll your theme, and it's gonna be like pipe dirt battle, or like scream tubes and bacon babies, or whipped cream wrist sphincters.
Yeah, I hope I get that one. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, we were this kind of happened because we were thinking about a few episodes back. We were trying to think about what should we do to kind of celebrate. And then as we were looking through all of our old episodes, we were just like, holy shit, these episode titles would make great jam themes. And so here we are. So if you want to jam with us, if you want to jam with other members of the Bscotch community, other people who are listeners of the podcast, come on over to the jam. Let's do it.
And by coming over, we mean go to Discord because we're not hosting it anywhere.
Yeah. It's just, it's across the whole world. The whole world will be this jam.
And our oyster.
And it's going to be, the jam will be occurring over Memorial Day weekend. So that's May 26th through 28th. And we've also I've gotten some messages from people who have said, I want to do the jam, but also I don't know how to program. So I guess I can't.
Untrue.
Can't or won't.
All of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
None of us knew how to program when we started making games.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, with something like Game Maker, it's designed specifically for people who don't know how to program.
So here's what you do. You get Game Maker. You do literally 3 or 4 tutorials, which shows you exactly how to do it using drag and drop code. And then you're good to go.
You're good to go. You got something like 5 weeks or something to learn it.
So for reference, I did the Game Maker tutorials for 4 hours the night before I made my first game over 2 days for a game jam. Yeah, that's all I needed.
We would recommend though
do more than that probably.
Oh yeah,
doing more than that.
I was phoning that shit in hard. Let's be real.
Yeah, but the point stands, which is even if you phone that shit in, you can still make a game.
Believe in yourself,
and just get to work.
Get to work.
Yeah, you will surprise yourself that if you take some time over the next few weeks, get Game Maker, go through tutorials. pop in and you've got 48 hours to make a game during this jam, you will be amazed at the kind of things.
I will say, if you've not done it before, there's, I think, not a more transformative thing that I've done in my life in a 2-day span than the first game jam I ever did. Honestly.
Yeah, same.
So do it.
And we'll try to provide some advice leading up to the thing, about
that's
getting your life in order, getting in geared, ready to
Well,
battle.
and that's kind of a cautionary point too, which is like, so I was in law school, right? And I went to my first game jam and then I dropped out of law school.
Yeah, it might cause some changes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not ready for that, then, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe you shouldn't.
Jam responsibly.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on to questions. These questions come from our listeners. These are submitted through podcast.bscotch.net. So if you would like to have your question answered on the podcast, come on over to podcast.bscotch.net. Ask some questions.
Yeah.
And we'll
You have to
answer
spell it with all those inflections, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it requires a lot of UTF-8 characters. It's kind of it's a little hard to type.
You know, like when people do that thing where like they keep making the words smaller and smaller,
with all the
superscripts.
superscripts.
I love that.
That's kind of like that's how you get to podcast.bscotch.net. All right. So first question comes from Woland77. Woland says, you have talked about your tool hype. Have you ever made a tool and realized you spent more time on the tool than you would have on doing the task without it?
Yes.
Or put a lot of time into building a tool that you've never used?
Also, yes.
So I put 100 hours into the Buttersmooth Shenanimator.
Super cool.
It's very cool.
It's amazing, but it turned out to just be way too damn slow. It was an
Although, have you
animation
tried
tool.
it in Game Maker 2?
No, because I have to rebuild it.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Well, I think, but the interesting point there is that, and this is the point I think about tools generally, is that when you go that deeply into a problem, because actually we used a lot of the concepts now for how the animation's handled in our next game. It's not done through that tool, but you learn so much from the tool, from building it, that now the game's better.
Right. Because the problem being solved was, how do we make a generic animation system specific to our animation style and to our software suite, right? And so Seth had to sit down and solve that problem, which was very hard. But once he solved it, now he can use all those concepts.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's exactly
the
right.
interesting thing is it was 100 hours to build the Shenanimator. Turned out to be a bust. Then we turned around and did a jam. It was a 3-day jam. And I thought, well, I know enough about this now, about how to solve these problems, that maybe I can make a sort of very bare bones version of the Shenanimator.
Oh, was it the birding game?
No, it was our hack and slash
Prototype.
Yeah. And so it was about 4 hours. I pieced together an entirely new set of scripts to do this generic animation stuff, but in a much more streamlined and optimized way. And that's actually what we're using now to animate in our new
So
stuff.
the interesting thing is, even if you make a tool or go through the work of, it's kind of like a game design doc, right? I mean, sometimes you're going to make one and then just throw it in the trash like a week later, but having gone through the process of making it oftentimes is what gives you the power to really efficiently move forward. Right?
Well, yeah, and just in general, it's about learning how to solve problems anyway, which just takes experience. Because I've been making tools ever since I started programming. That was why I started programming, and that was why I got into it. So that starting 10 years ago now, something like that. And I started making stuff for my lab work. So I was doing for data analysis or for helping me design experiments or whatever. And I remember, I made a stupid number of things that were overly ambitious. They were bigger than they needed to be, things that I never needed to use, things that were just poorly thought out, because there's just a lot of trial and error when you're trying to build stuff. And so I would spend a lot of time trying to make things have a nice user experience, even though I was the only person who would ever use it. Right. But kind of assuming that maybe this would be a tool that other people could use without really realizing how specific my problems were that I was solving and that sort of thing. And I spent, literally years and years and years making tools that to varying degrees were just the wrong scope. Because that's really what this question is about, right? Is scoping out your tools properly.
Yeah, and that's something that you just need more experience to understand context better.
Right. You just have to be okay with making tools that sometimes you shouldn't have made.
It's the same thing with games, right?
Yeah, it's
your
exactly
first
the
ones
same.
are going to be completely off the mark.
Basically. And it's fine.
Well, this I think is a bigger question, which is actually it's a conversation that came up in our game dev course last week with some of our students post lecture. Is the question of sort of when do you sort of walk away from a game? How do you know that a game was worth it? All this stuff. And really, we talk about tools development, about taking the time to solve a problem so you never have to solve it again. But really, you should take a step back and realize that everything that you do is a tool.
Yeah.
Like everything that you experience you should treat it as an instrument to solve problems later, right? The experience that you gain, the lessons that you learn, even if you make a game that fails, or you like read a book that you hated, or whatever, or you hear somebody talking about something that you completely disagree with, those things are actually really important to take note of and take a step back and think about why you think the things that you think, why things happen the way that they did.
Or even skills that you think wouldn't apply just to anything. So for a good example of this, so we're working on the title for this next game that we're working on. And part of the difficulty with coming up for a title for things, essentially generating an all-encompassing word that's new, that is able to be potentially trademarked or get
marketable.
It's marketable. People will remember it, that it's not confusing in any way. But that somehow also carries the character of your game through. And part of the difficulty with it is you get tunnel vision real quick. So you come up with a couple of different sort of concepts and start mashing them together. And so what I did actually over the weekend was I was thinking about it, and I was like, where could I get just essentially what would be random, really well put together words? And I was like, poetry, because I used to read and write poetry, because it's people being clever with words. And I was like, that's what I need. So I went and I found Billy Collins, who's a phenomenal poet who I used to read really accessible and hilarious poetry stuff, and found a bunch of his work. It's like all online. So I just went and read like 80 Billy Collins poems and was just looking, like had to sort of like creative feelers out, you just
but then also just get
hit
the practice of having your brain work in that same way.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And so, and I was thinking about it, after I finished sort of reading all those and generating some new ideas for titles, and I was like, I should actually keep that, like that sort of habit of either writing poetry or whatever else. The reason you do it, any of those habits, is so that you have this other mode that you can operate in, so you can see problems maybe a little bit differently, or have access to a way of thinking that's a little bit different, whether it's programming, poetry, or generally writing or anything.
Yeah, getting outside of your normal way of thinking.
Yeah. So a lot of these things that you might not think are applicable, usually you can actually figure out how to apply them at the end of the day, with a little bit of foresight.
Yeah. It turns out if you think about stuff and are constantly trying to learn things,
it's pretty good. Well, this is actually, I think it's a curse though, because
is it a blurse or just
it's just a straight curse because you don't know this until you're much older.
Yeah.
Like you can't know how much things matter until you've seen the consequences of knowing or not knowing things long enough, right? And because the first, 18 whatever to 20-ish years of your life, you are forced into an existence where nothing you do actually matters, right? You either get the A, B, C, D, or F, but the consequence is that you just move on to the next class. The end, right? Whether you succeed or fail or whatever, like maybe you'll retake it, but it's just nothing matters, right? And this is the way everything is. So there's that kind of like age-old question that students always ask, which is, how am I ever going to use this? When am I ever going to use, this like sine, tangent, cosine nonsense?
That's also why people argue against liberal arts educations, right?
When are you ever going to use it? Yeah. And the problem is you don't
know.
You don't know when you're going to use it until you need it. And then you're like, oh, shit.
Or you're like, oh, thank God.
But it's also not about using it, right? It's about having had that way of thinking attached to your brain, so that sometime down the road, I mean, the fact that you can use, programming, algorithmic approaches that you would use for solving computer problems, that you can just apply those to everyday life, right? Or that becoming a good reader, because you read all kinds of old stuff, makes you familiar with things that people are saying when they're trying to convince you of things. Now you can see what they're doing because people have been doing that for 200 years. And if you'd only read a few books, you would know that.
Right.
Yep.
So
what's that term of like the curve of expertise where there's
J curve?
There's a certain point where you know so little that you just have no concept of how little you know, right? And then at a certain point,
are you talking about Dunning-Kruger?
The Dunning-Kruger, yeah.
But that's not the curve. That's
the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah, it's basically there's a
curve. The J curve is the one.
Yeah, it's the idea that there's a difference between your perceived knowledge about something, like how much you think you know, versus how much you actually know. And when you're first learning about something, you get this kind of overconfidence, which is basically where every like teenager is.
Well, I think this is
because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, but you feel like you know stuff.
Well, to relate this back to the game jam, I mean, that was the same thing where up until actually doing one, making games to me was like a completely inaccessible
Just magic
concept. It was like, what the fuck? And then I did it and I was like, I can do this. Right? You made one terrible game in 48 hours.
Yeah, and then
you're
you
like,
look
I
at
can do
and then
this.
you look at Call of Duty, and you're like, this is basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which is good. So the thing is, I think
You
there's
need
a
it.
degree of that confidence or hubris right at the start that you kind of need to push you off a cliff that you don't know is a cliff. Right?
Yeah.
It's like the Wile E. Coyote thing. You're like, yeah, and you run off
You
the
don't
edge,
realize
and
that
you're
there's
floating
nothing
for a brief
underneath.
moment.
Yeah, and then of
Beautiful
course,
moment.
and then there's that point where you learn enough that you suddenly start to realize how far you actually have to go.
Yeah.
And then you sort of get the imposter syndrome. Like you kind of underestimate your knowledge or whatever. But
For the rest
I
of
think the
time.
problem is because of the way our schooling works, our goal is to try to like introduce people to a sort of a little bit of everything, right? And so you learn like a little bit of math, a little bit of English, a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of science, a little bit of whatever.
And
and
so
then,
you either know exactly how little you know because you're at the very beginning of the curve, or you're really overconfident.
or you're
about your
way
knowledge.
overcoming, right? Because I remember being a teenager or even
yeah.
being in college,
Yeah.
and I just thought I was the shit. Like
Yeah.
my teachers would start talking about something like, I know where this is going. It's like, and it's kind of the curse where now
That's interesting.
now looking back, there's so many things that I just wish I was less cocky about and that I just fucking listened.
So it's almost like our educational system almost just puts you right in the
it puts you right in the
confident spot
overconfident
of
Yeah.
the J curve.
And
right?
then you wonder why Americans are the way we are.
Yeah.
because
Because I think there's a problem where you need to know a lot of things in order to learn a lot of things, right? And so there's kind of like you got to like dip your toe into the oceans of knowledge, all these different pools. But you can't recognize what it means to truly not know something until you've started to go deeply into one particular thing and just realize how far down that rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, so it's not even about age, as you sort of said at the beginning, that you can't understand until you're older. It's
Right.
that you can't understand the value of a thing until you have used it. It's not even until you realize you need it, because you can't realize you need it.
because
and
all
it's
you've
useful.
quote used it for is tests.
Yeah.
Right.
right.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's all you
But that
use it
means
for.
though that if there's something you've never done before, like if you've never tried to make a game, right? It is literally impossible for you to understand anything about what it means to do that and how difficult it would be and like what you would need to know and if how your knowledge would
You got
apply.
no context.
Because you have zero context. You have to actually do it to get, which is the whole catch-22 of becoming awesome at stuff, right? Is you can't understand anything about where you are and what you need until you just go ahead and do it. And so
That's why you always have to do things before you're ready. If you ever get to a point where you're like, well, I would do this game jam, but I haven't programmed enough, or like I've never done art. No, go
gives a
do
shit?
it. You don't understand. Like doing it is the vehicle to doing programming or doing art or whatever.
there's no other way.
Yeah. And now that I'm a programmer, I'm looking back. I'm like, I wish I was a math major, and I wish,
right.
I wish I knew more about X, Y, and Z.
Literally.
but because I didn't, know.
Nice.
Again, because I kept thinking, what am I going to use that for?
Right.
And now I really need to use it all the time, and I can't because
Except there's nothing stopping you now though either.
yeah.
Literally nothing. You can just go buy a book. And
Well,
then
the only
read it.
thing stopping me now is burn rate.
Right.
So like, I gotta produce based on the tools I have,
Get to
and then the
work.
extra time I
you
put
get-
toward learning.
To go back to the question, as far as like a tool that I worked on that was a useless piece of garbage. So when we got AutoHotkey, like I've always been singing the praises of AutoHotkey, which is a little scripting engine you can get, has a really simple scripting language that allows you to essentially make hotkeys for anything you want on your entire computer. And we use it.
The language is, I mean, you call it simple. I call it confusing as fuck
I thought it was
because it seems to
pretty
have
easy,
no coherent rules.
which is pretty much how I operate. So I'm right at home. So
no coherent rule set, I'm in.
so as an agent of chaos, it just fits me. So I got a hotkey and I set up a bunch of basic ones first, a bunch of easy stuff, and then when I really got into it, after I used those, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hotkey changing things like the fill and the stroke size, using the side dialogue
Inkscape.
menus in Inkscape. And coded this whole thing up, and it was like really fucking complicated. And then I go in Inkscape, start using it. It's working great. Close it. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to speed me up so much. Open up Inkscape again. And the problem was that the dialogue windows get sorted depending on when you turn them on. So as a result, the thing I'd made, which depends on clicking on very precise places on the screen, for example, was now just clicking on essentially a different dialogue window. Right? And so
you hit your hotkey and just everything.
and I spent like 8 hours on this, like scripting the shit out of it. And I was so pleased. I was like, yes. And then
And you
it was
forgot
just
that one
useless.
little detail.
That one little detail that just broke the whole
Yeah,
thing.
well, it was also like when I made our the ink pump or the Inkbot, right? It was the same kind of deal. It's like we thought we knew
What the problem was.
the problem, and then you actually solve that problem, and it turns out actually no. Here's this new list of things that mean it just doesn't work.
Right.
You know. But that doesn't mean that the tool is useless. It just meant you got to go back and retool it if you wanted it to do what you
retool
wanted.
it.
That one in particular was useless because I couldn't.
You couldn't use
There's
it.
no way I could.
You couldn't take that, you're right, you couldn't take that same approach.
That particular one,
Yeah.
But I did learn a ton, which made me super comfortable out of hockey. So whatever.
Speaking of art and of imposter syndrome, etc.,
yeah.
we got a question from Ulfbane.
Mm.
Ulfbane says, at Sam the Node Wiggler, let's use
That's
him.
my title.
Salmon node wiggler.
Salmon Node Wiggler. How long did it take you to feel that your artwork was professional enough for public consumption? I worry that my work is never good enough, even when I have loads of feedback to the contrary. I feel like that's a bit of a humble brag there.
Oh, yeah.
But
Just a whole brag. Also, who's this feedback coming from? Because it's coming from your friends.
if it's
or
coming
people-
from your friends and family, they're lying.
Yep. And if it comes from people who prefer
Never trust
to
your
be
friends and
positive over productive, also don't trust it.
If it comes from a million people, you're good.
Yeah.
So I guess the way I think about this is it's essentially been a running joke in the studio actually for a good long while because I've always sort of bristled at being called an artist because the general like tone of that word to me doesn't quite fit what I do with the art nor how I feel about it because I don't draw in my spare time. I just do art or
For the
video
games,
games
yep.
only. And so I think the interesting part about it is that for me in particular, that idea of not having good enough art has never gone away and will never go away. Because as I said, once you get far enough in, I think that there was a few moments in making Quadrupus Rampage where I was like, oh, this is good. Like this is actually a good thing. And then since then, I've just been fine with the fact that I think my art is not very good and that I can only see, or like not only see, but I could primarily just see all the ways in which I should be improving it or looking at other games and seeing kind of how they do effects or whatever else. And just always wanting to do the next thing with it. And so
You
it's
should
never
always want to improve.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
the reality is that that's actually because that's how I feel about myself as a programmer.
exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is like, I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah,
like
you shouldn't.
I don't feel like it's not good enough. I just think this could be so much better.
Yeah.
That's it. But I don't simultaneously like you can do both, I guess is the interesting thing. You can say, oh, this is garbage compared to, Michelangelo, but it's good enough for government work.
Yeah. So what about though the idea of your work being professional enough for public consumption? Because I think there's one important way to find out, which
to
is
sell
sell it.
Yeah.
And you'll
find out.
just find out.
Yeah,
Because the thing is, if people buy it, then it's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It's just
That's true. I think that's kind of the interesting thing is the market has acted as this weird sort of buffer in that regard, I guess, because the thing is like we've made and sold games, which as a result has made it so that, as an artistic professional, I may be like one of the most successful artists around in terms of selling your work. Right.
right.
Would I call my art the most professional art around? No, not by any stretch. But in terms of it being able to operate in a professional sphere.
Well, and actually, so there's a book called The Artist's Way, which is going to be on our book list. And it's been highly recommended. I haven't actually read it until I just started reading it this past week. Because I feel like I already do most of the things in it, but it's just a really good way to kind of get perspective. There's a really important note in this book where they talk about how a lot of people who are just getting started in their craft or even feel like they're really talented, maybe like haven't hit the success that they want or whatever, they'll see somebody who's out there, like maybe they're a singer and they'll see like a pop singer or something, and they'll be like, I can't believe that person is so famous. Like they're not that talented, you know? But the book makes an important distinction there between like talent and audacity.
Yeah.
Right. Where some people either like land in the right spot. They like make just the right connection.
Or
it doesn't matter how
you
how maybe they're not the best.
Right. Or just have the right alchemy of like weird skills and appearance and everything else. Right. It's
business savvy.
Yeah. There's tons of stuff going on besides just like
getting up on the stage and
I mean, there are
dancing.
plenty of really good games people have made that have sold effectively 0 copies, right?
There's plenty of medium games that have gone gangbusters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even games that are very poorly reviewed that have done very well. And so I think, just having the audacity to just go for it, just don't worry about whether it's professional for public consumption because you'll find out.
Yeah.
When you go to sell it.
Mm-hmm. And there's a niche, there's a business niche for just about any damn thing, So if you're making something that is unique, even if you look at it and you're like, this isn't as good as some other stuff that I've seen from other people, right? But if you're making something interesting and unique and it's
good enough.
It's good enough, right? Then if you can find a way to market it, then you can.
But it's
you can
important
sell
to
it.
not try to market bad stuff as being unique, right?
You mean
this
the
is something-
badness being the unique.
the badness being the unique part.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah.
something that you see in Greenlight a lot, actually, or if you go and you find games that are
This
pretty
is Steam Greenlight.
Steam Greenlight, yeah. There's a lot of games in there that are, people making their first game or whatever, or maybe they're doing a solo project and they aren't an artist by trade and they've never done much art.
Or
so
a
they're,
class project.
they're trying to make their own art for the game. And it just is rough, right? It's just rough around the edges. And people will come in and say, yeah, I like the concept of this game, but I don't like how it looks, And the person will jump into the comments and defend it. And they'll say,
which is something you should literally never do.
you should never do this. But they'll jump in the comments and say, it's not bad. It's just, it doesn't look like other things. It's like, well,
It's just my style.
Yeah. You don't get to decide.
thing-
When
the
you're
thing
making
is-
a product, you don't get to decide if it's good.
you
or
don't, you don't get to tell people how good it is. They
Mhm.
get to decide how good it is.
Yeah.
And
is
so
that
you should
being
try
said,
to
I think-
ratchet up to their expectations.
Yeah, I think there is one interesting note too, and I think this is from Tim Rustwick, who runs a thing called Game Dev Underground. He talked about the concept of going from 0 to 1 being the important piece when it comes to game dev or anything else, and that's the hardest bit to cover. And the whole idea is
I
that
assume this isn't on a probability metric because that's from the least to the most.
Right. No.
Okay.
0 to 1 is in like sales or
Right.
games published.
making
like-
something good enough that somebody will recognize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
making that first sale is the hard part. Actually, like doing all the work to publish a game, have your LLC in order, market it, whatever
I
else.
still remember our first review we ever got for a game ever.
Yeah.
Andy Chalk in
Mhm,
Game
Zebo.
Zebo wrote about
Mhm.
Gerblins.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's not that good.
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
But the thing is, that was a crack in the door, right?
But he said he wrote that and we were like, he gave us 3 stars.
Yeah.
That's 3 more than we expected to
Yeah.
get.
So I think the interesting thing is that there's a ton of work that goes from 0 to 1. And then after that, it's just scale, right? It's saying, okay, I did that once. I made $5. We used to call it sandwich money. So I'm making sandwich money right now off my games, $5 a day. That was our first goal.
How do I make like sandwich plus beefy noodle money?
Yeah. So how do I make, lunch and dinner money?
Yeah.
And then how do I pay my rent?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just keep on scaling it up. And the hardest thing is that first 0 to 1. We talked about this in the podcast too. Going from it's lucky that essentially we have it's a product of our ecosystem that we have our games to sort of feed people into our podcasts, for example. But when it comes to actually marketing a podcast and stuff, we don't know actually how to do it. We've never gone from 0 to 1 in podcast terms because we just took our games and sort of applied them.
Which has made us lazy.
Very lazy.
Yeah.
When it comes to
Well, and
promoting
with our
a
YouTube
podcast.
channel, right? Because
Same thing.
we have automatic because we don't even use YouTube to try to drive traffic to our trailers, right?
Yeah.
We use other things and then we say now that's going to buoy up our YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and so but we don't actually we haven't
We have a lot-
consciously
we have a lot to
tried
learn.
to market basically anything.
Except for our
games.
games.
But even our games, though, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we got some things to figure out. All right, so next question comes from the Giuseppe, who says, and I think it's interesting. So far, this is a one of a kind question. Nobody has ever asked this question before. Hey, how are you guys?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
I'm doing good. Right.
Yeah. I guess this last 2 weeks was pretty whack in my life, but
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I had a cancer scare last week. I'm fine.
Yeah, we didn't want to talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah,
So we
cancer came out of the closet and it was like, boo.
Yeah.
And then it turned out it was just a
huge muscle.
huge beefy muscle,
Which is hilarious. So yeah, I got that
You
figured
got to
out.
scan it. And they're like, yeah, that's
So my wife got in a car accident. She's fine though. Car's destroyed, but she's fine. So it's been a little bit stressful.
my wife's in India for a couple weeks, so I'm just hanging out with a dog by myself in the evenings, weeping. It's just it's a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crying alone.
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So you, Adam.
Yeah, same deal. My wife's not in India, but she has to work constantly, so it comes out about the same.
It's like she's in
Yeah.
India.
So I've just been programming basically nonstop for 2 weeks, which has
Yeah,
been
yeah.
great, but it's put me in a really weird mental spot.
Yeah,
I'm
it's something you
how
got to be careful.
Yeah,
about,
forgetting how
actually.
to talk to people.
I've found that if
You
I
know?
program, I have to stop programming at least a couple hours before I go to bed, or I just don't.
yeah, I
sleep.
fucked up last night. Well,
I just
there's been
literally
this
don't
problem
sleep.
that I've been trying to battle that it keeps defeating me. And so last night I was like, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to fucking solve it before I go to bed.
Oh God.
And so,
What are you
but I
doing?
got, so
Sisyphus, no.
so I thought I solved it, and it was like, and I have to go to bed early because I get up super early with my wife. But so I was like, okay, I got this time cap. I thought I had a solution. I went and tried it, and then it just didn't work again. And I was like, fuck. And so then I had to but I was like, it was bedtime. It was past bedtime. So
you left on a bug.
So I left on a bug, which I'd been on the bug anyway.
Yeah,
but I left
still
on the bug. That's a good term.
But I did, as I was going to bed, as I was getting under the covers, I was like, wait.
Yep, there it is.
Yep.
And I knew what it was, but I decided not to go actually do it.
And then now you should have done it.
I did not sleep well, but this morning I did it the moment I woke up and it works. So yeah,
there you go.
So it all came out fine, but that's been my life for the past few weeks. And so
that's
weird.
Yeah,
thanks for asking.
Yeah. Actually, I spent my weekend doing a lot of sort of reading, thinking, writing.
I refer to that as noodling.
It was a noodle weekend.
Yeah.
Beefy nudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of beefy nudes, we got a question from Lethalor, who says, "If you are what you eat, what are you, gents?"
I was waiting for the direction of this.
Yeah. So I've been eating beefy noodles lately.
Yeah, which we've shortened to beefy nudes.
Just beefy nudes.
Yeah.
Which is having a big old bowl of beefy nudes.
It's just started throwing some serrano peppers.
Serrano peppers.
So now he's got
hot beefy nudes. Yeah. So mostly I'm just hot beefy nudes.
Yeah.
All the way down.
I made dumplings with my wife's family on Sunday. So I've been eating a lot of dumplings.
You're a dumple.
Shitload of dumplings.
So you're a dumple.
I'm a dumple. What are you at?
I think I'm mostly like lunch meat, like sliced honey ham,
cold cuts.
Cold cuts.
So you're a cold cut.
Which I think pigs are basically people anyway when it comes to meat.
That is true. That's something that's always kind of weird.
I think I'm just a person still.
The fact that you can transplant a pig heart into a person and it's totally fine.
I mean, it's not totally fine, but
I mean, it's pretty fine.
Also, I think it's not the whole heart. I think it's just a valve.
Yeah.
It's just some cartilage, whatever.
But
the fact that you can transplant a pig body onto a person.
The fact that you can,
you guys heard about this, right? This first head transplant that this guy is trying to do is going to be onto a pig.
This bothers me.
Onto a pig?
No, it's not really.
This head transplant thing bothers me. Not for the ethics, but because it's a body transplant. The head is the important part.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not transplanting a head.
It mostly bothers me because it's not going to work. And the whole thing is stupid.
It's not going to work, but
you'll be eating your words.
But the crazy it's like we haven't been able to fix people's spine injuries ever. This is a thing we cannot do. And this guy's like, I'm going to cut off someone's head, which is the maximum spine injury. There's no right.
That's one way to put it.
I'm going to cut off a person's head and just put it on a different body, right? And even though nowhere else in the entire universe, and even I personally, could not take somebody who has a spine injury and fix it. Somehow I'm going to
if I give him a spine injury first, then I can fix it.
Right. He's going to make a clean one. He's going to cut it right.
Perfect. I guess maybe that's the idea.
What are they going to use? Like a guillotine?
Probably.
No, you need like a big clean cut, right?
You use a butter knife or like a spoon.
Can you imagine that
Surgical
operating room? Be
spoon.
like, all right, we
got to wheel in the guillotine.
Can someone sanitize the guillotine?
They just like spritz it with some rubbing alcohol.
Oh, that's freaky. All right, let's move on.
Anyway, stupid head transplants. Okay. Next question comes from -5 charisma. So I guess
don't answer it.
They just rolled real shitty on their
really
D&D character.
Does that mean we should answer this? We actually need to do
what's the consequence?
We need to do a check.
We need to do
a roll.
We need to do a what is it, like a wisdom save? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess intellect would be like what you do to fight against charisma.
Is it though? Because I feel like sometimes a lot of really smart people have terrible charisma.
I think you just
no. If somebody's using charisma on you, you gotta roll.
I think you can just always use a strength check because you can always just punch fast.
Or dexterity.
Quit using those words at my face.
Just sneak away.
Just sneak away.
Sneak. As someone's trying to trick you, you just back away.
Just back away into the bushes. Homer Simpson style.
You hear a politician on the radio and you just like sneak out of your car. I'm gone. All right, so -5 charisma says, also one of the benefits of -5 charisma, you get a lot of points left over to put into other things.
That's true.
So -5 charisma may very well be very talented.
You could just be mute, not worry about it.
Yeah,
if you never talk.
I think a 0 is a mute. If you're -5, you take words from other people. You're so mute that when other people talk around you, it comes out of you.
You're like word thief.
Yeah, you're like the Vanta Black of sound.
Yes. Whoa. Oh shit.
Charm thief.
Yeah. All right. So -5 charisma says, "Hello, Butterscotch crew.
Hello.
Hey. Has there ever been an offhand remark or joke that turned into a eureka moment for someone else at the office. Also, that sweet hashtag vague hype.
Oh, yeah.
Have a good one. All right. So there's one in particular that I always look back on fondly, which is we were coming up with the elixirs for Crashlands.
His answer to another question, too. Someone was asking about it.
Oh,
someone asks about this potion, so this will be a double whammy.
I don't know where that question is, but we'll tag it as answered, I guess. So the question or we were coming up with the elixirs, and we wanted to do like 20 different elixirs and these longer term things that they're kind of expensive to make, and they provide a benefit to you. And so we kept talking about the speed boost one. We're like, yeah, it's going to be it's just going to give you like a 5 or 10% boost to your movement speed. It's going to be great. And over the course, it's one of those times where you keep saying the same word over and over again, and it starts to sound weird, and then it kind of loses its meaning. And then you stumble. And then at a certain point, Adam said, "Spood Beast elixir," and this was while we were trying to figure out what it was made of, and we were like, "Holy shit, it's made of Spood Beasts," which wasn't actually a thing in the game. And so then Sam just drew this little like dumb little furry thing, and then we just. Called it a Spood Beast, and then we just threw it into a bunch of random resources throughout the game. So I think Spood Beasts come out of like Whistle Roots and Jolly Chomps.
They are one of the few, cross biome creatures. That's right.
Spood Beasts are everywhere. They're kind of like the Tribble.
They're Tribble, basically.
Of Woe Nope.
Yeah. It is funny, though, too, because the vast majority of people who play it and are going to try to find Spood Beasts to make their speed boost potions don't even make the connection. Yeah. It doesn't register. Yeah.
Spood Beast. Yeah, you get a Spood Beast, you make a speed boost.
So yeah, there's tons of those that happen. I mean, we're always just the interesting thing is we're almost constantly in a state of play. I noticed this. I was thinking about this the other day because we've been having a lot of fun at work, and I think it's because someone will say something and then there's always a brief riff. It basically is like the podcast, right? It's a brief riff before you actually go into whatever the thing is, and sometimes in that joke is accidentally either the answer to the problem or an idea for the problem.
Like we talked about last week, you just embrace the chaos, right? Because if when I had said Spood Beast, everybody does what most people do and just made fun of me for stumbling on a word, right? Because if you're out in the real world, like people just do that. They're like, haha, you stumbled on a word for some reason that's hilarious and you're dumb, right?
And now I'm going to mock you.
Now I'm going to mock you. So if instead of doing that, you just laugh along with it and be like,
let's use that
Spood Beast, right?
Get those creative feelers out there, drifting in the winds.
Because words are just made up anyway.
Yeah.
So but this is going to come back to the idea of like a creative atmosphere.
Yes.
And how important it is to be supportive of people, even when they fuck up.
Especially when they fuck up.
Yeah, because actually most importantly when they fuck up.
That's usually where the safety and then also the randomness comes from. Yep. The accidental stuff that you couldn't possibly, if we sat down, we're like, let's come up with a creature that creates the speed boost potion. It wouldn't have been a Spood Beast. No way you do that on purpose. Yeah. But it accidentally just comes out.
Yep. And if you're worried that any slip up you make will get you mocked, then you just won't talk. And then you'll never have a Spood Beast.
No. Yeah.
And your game will be terrible as a result. All right.
It'll be absolute garbage.
All right. Next question comes from Cathal. Cathal says, welcome to Time Flux Holidays. For a once in a lifetime opportunity, we can send you to any period of history for a month. Where would you like to go today?
Well, the past,
period attire, food, and accommodation included.
The past is universally worse, and the future looks bleak. So I'm just going to stay right here.
Yeah,
this seems like the best place right now.
If you get period attire, if you go back to like the dinosaur era, do you get a dinosaur to ride?
Are you just a dinosaur?
Are you a dinosaur?
That's period attire. Yeah,
I feel like
that's what dinosaurs wore.
Yeah, because humans didn't exist, and didn't have clothes.
I would go see stuff that you can't. That's not human related.
Well, there's a question here. That far back. The question here is: Are you an observer, or do you have to actually sort of exist? I think you're going to
live. Well, you're going to live there. That's why I would just go.
But was this a permanent change or
a 1 month? 1 month. Because there are things I would like to, and it also has accommodation included. So you're going to have a place to stay. You're going to have food.
I'm assuming my safety's insured.
If you're a dinosaur, because that's your attire, is that also your?
That's also your accommodations. Okay. Yeah,
it's like
because you're in a dinosaur.
Ace Ventura living in that rhino. It's getting hot in this rhino.
You're going to be in a robo dino. And that's going to be your hotel.
Yeah, I think I would go to before human history stuff, because
I would like to see.
We know a lot of stuff.
I would like to see. Okay, so there used to be multiple types of human in the world.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? There were Neanderthals, which they got wiped out like 30, 40,000 years ago. There were these small people that were on one island only. And there's this thing called, what is it called? Island dwarfism, where basically if you have an isolated island that is not very rich in resources, if larger creatures end up there somehow, and then they become isolated and they can't leave, then if they manage to survive, the offspring of theirs who do survive are the smaller ones. And so over just a period of generations, you get these like just smaller versions of the same thing, including people.
Yeah.
And
elephants.
Yep. Yeah, there's these little pygmy elephants and stuff. And so there were these people who lived on this island. I think it was like 20,000 years ago or something. And they were just small.
Scaled down.
Yeah, they were just like a perfect scale model. Yeah. And
I think the main problem though with going back to any of these and trying to see these other kinds of humans is they would just try to kill you immediately.
Well, that's why I was like, are you safe? Or do you have to actually be there?
Let's assume safety is guaranteed.
Sure.
You're basically showing up kind of like you're like an alien.
And I assume you're also on a different timeline. So by being there, you don't
also
change
it's
the
period
future.
attire. That means you got to wear like, I don't know, war paint and a strap or something. Whatever.
Just nothing.
Just nothing.
Going to buff.
Yeah, and then there was also these people who looked very different. They were like found in one specific area, like the Red Deer Cave people, which I think were found somewhere in like China,
East Asia, yeah,
something like that. So like there was one period of time, it was like a 5,000 year period where there were 4 different types of human on the earth.
Like types and species?
Yeah, like Lord of the Rings style. Right. Where like you've got like halflings and you've got like, you got your elves, whatever. Yeah. I would want to see that.
It'd be pretty neat.
But I don't know why.
It would
just
be
for perspective, I guess.
It would be interesting, but
it's just like going to see the dinosaurs. I mean,
yeah. It would probably kind of boring because you'd see the people and be like, wow, those people, they
don't exist anymore.
But then they just be going around just doing regular people stuff.
Yeah. And they look the same as like all the weird people we've invented in our mythologies.
Yeah. Anyway. So actually maybe that would be boring.
Dinosaurs though.
Yeah, I'd go see dinosaurs. Jurassic Park me.
See some dinos.
Yep.
Can I go into the ocean? Like somehow because going into like dinosaur, actually even before dinosaur time.
Oh man, that'd be terrifying. Oh my God.
Cool.
I wouldn't go in there.
Well, I would need to be.
Your accommodations are included, so you have a submarine, I assume,
and it's
it better be a huge.
Yeah, it's presumably
submarine.
like enormous animal proof.
Yeah,
submarine of some sort.
Now, there's a question here, which is, do the things that you do on this vacation ripple through time?
No, I think Adam was saying it's got to also be a separate time.
Well, I mean,
separate
so
branch.
either we've already gone on this vacation because that's why
that's just part of the
how it
timeline,
is, right?
sure,
Because we got to prevent paradoxes, or it's on a new timeline.
Well,
so either way, we're fine.
I haven't already gone on this vacation because
not yet.
If I did, I would find some kind of like a caveman stock to invest in. Because the compound interest over 15,000 years
is pretty good.
Oh yeah, find the oldest bank that still exists today.
Just open up a regular.
Take a month, go back to when they first started.
Just get a really long CD.
Yeah. Boom.
No, you go to like 1930. Like right after the stock market has just completely bottomed out.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Buy all the stocks.
The problem is you need to get money that existed in the 1930s because you can't just like bring a $20 bill from today. They'd be like, what is this demon money? Right. Because it'll have all these
almost
crazy things
but not
in it.
Quite. Right.
Yeah. Who's this weird person on here? Yeah. So you got to be, it's tricky. We got to really execute.
And I still got to go.
So you have to bring a whole bunch of gold with you or something and then sell it for.
Oh yeah, there
dollars.
you go. Gold always works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where you would
It's hard.
sell
You can't
that much
carbon date it
gold
because it's gold. So you don't know where it came from. You can't tell it came from the future.
Done.
That's true. All right, everybody. Well, my coffee is empty.
As is mine.
So you know what that means.
No.
It means we're done.
Oh.
So we'd like to thank our producer Fat Bard and our studio wrangler Monique for pulling this episode together, as well as the Butterscotch dev team for continuing to build stuff while we sit in here screaming like a pack of wild banshees. And of course, we'd also like to thank our listeners for coming back every week to listen to us ramble like a bunch of weirdos. And also, we don't advertise this show. We have no plan here. We don't know what the hell we're doing. Which means we rely on you guys. We depend on word of mouth and good reviews to kind of spread this show around and spread the love. So if you want to help us grow, please tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell your dog's grandma. And while you're at it, hit up iTunes and give us some 5 stars. Every little bit helps. We appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.